When you think of sports teams around the world, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? For some, it may be a specific player, an iconic game, or even a play that brought them immense joy or heartbreak. But for me personally, it's always the logos. Logos allow fans to truly connect with everything their team represents. All the legendary players, the unforgettable plays, compelling stories, and rich history are all tied back to that simple logo that symbolizes everything. And that's especially true in the NFL. When the league first started, most teams didn't actually have logos. However, as the league grew and teams became more professional, the logo became a lot more widespread and common throughout the league itself, to the point to where every team has its own unique history behind each and every one. So today, let's go ahead and explore each NFC logo and see how they've evolved today. We're going to go through each division from the NFC East to the NFC North, and then we'll see which team can have the ultimate bragging rights, having the best logo. Originally called the Dallas Steers after the cattle, it was changed due to being a very unappealing name, all things considered. Then, they decided to name themselves the Dallas Rangers, but that also had to be changed to avoid confusion with a local minor league baseball team. So, the name Cowboys was chosen to reflect Texas's history and heritage of Western Cowboys, plus it provided a really easy and memorable name for the DFW area. As for the logo itself, well, it's always been that iconic blue star, a simple reference to Texas as being the Lone Star State, as well as the star on the Texas flag. It started as a simple blue star, but starting in 1967, it gained a white outline, with every change after that just simply being a change with color and proportion size. As for my thoughts on this logo, it's iconic for a reason. When you think of the Dallas Cowboys, you'll always think of the star on the helmet, and I don't think that logo is going away anytime soon. It's been going strong for the past 65 years, and I have a feeling it will continue to go strong. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles' name does come from the fact that Philadelphia is the birthplace of America, since both the Declaration of Independence and Constitution were both written there. More specifically, though, it was a reference to the National Recovery Act, which was established by President Roosevelt after the Great Depression, with the logo of the act itself having an eagle on it. So the founders of the team decided to pay homage to that. The logo itself has gone through numerous changes, evolving from a design reminiscent of the US dollar to something more like a stylized eagle with an actual football, to finally the head of an eagle we recognize today. Now, despite my feeling towards the team being a bottom-dwelling, low-life scum of the earth, I think the logo is perfectly fine. It does get some bonus points for having a hidden E in the actual eagle, plus being the only NFL logo to be naturally facing left, but I still think it can be a bit better. Now to the most recent rebrand in the league, we have the Washington Commanders. After being called the Redskins for 70 plus years, they made the objectively correct decision to change the name from Redskins to Commanders, since Redskins is a derogatory term towards Native Americans. And despite some of the wishes of people, including President Trump, to change it back to the Redskins, Commanders is a better name, albeit a bit bland. As for the actual name itself, it's a simple reference to the fact that they play in Washington, D.C., even though the stadium is currently in Maryland. The history of the actual Commanders logo is really simple, since they've only ever had that one logo, which is the W with the yellow outline. And like I said previously, both the name and the logo are extremely bland. There are plenty of other names that they could have chosen once they decided to swap from Redskins to Commanders. And while I think Commanders is fine, you know it's bad when the majority of people call you the Washington Commies. Finally, we have the New York Giants. Now, the Giants are actually named after the New York Giants of baseball, which now reside in San Francisco. Tim Mara, who was the founder of the Giants, simply just copied the name because he thought it sounded good, with the name originating from the fact that New York's skyline is made up of a bunch of, giant buildings. The first two logos the Giants ever had were not that great, to be honest. They were way too busy with way too much stuff going on, and honestly, they just don't look good. In 1961, however, they introduced the iconic NY logo, which was then followed by a very angular modern interpretation for 1975 standards of it, which frankly looked quite bad, because they immediately replaced it in 1976 with the iconic Giants logo, which was just the word filled in with blue and with a red outline. And it looked really well and lasted all the way up till 1999, before the original NY logo returned, this time sporting a brand new red outline. Despite being an iconic logo, I think it could be a lot better, especially since I think you could find a good middle ground between the old logos and this new logo, because when I see NY, I don't think of the Giants. I just think, oh, it's someone who plays in New York.
And they don't even play in New York, they play in frickin' New Jersey.
I think there's something that can be done that can actually say, we are the Giants. I mean, hell, if you want to, just put Godzilla in the back of it, and then that'll probably be most of the work done. Next up in the NFC West, we have the oldest team in the entirety of the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. The name Cardinals actually doesn't come from the bird, but the color. When they got the uniforms that they were going to be wearing, instead of the uniforms being maroon, a player noted that they looked cardinal red instead. Thus the name stuck. As for the logo, it has evolved from being a bird on the top of a football, being merged with Pittsburgh because of World War II, becoming a bizarre human hybrid once they moved to St. Louis, to the version we see today. And this is also the first instance of what I'm going to coin the polished logo phenomenon that we will see many more times throughout the league. The logo we have today is very good in my opinion, because the colors are pop and bright, which is something you love to see, and you can easily tell that it's supposed to be a cardinal. Plus, it looks a lot better than the previous iterations they've had. I mean, look at this thing. This thing's a monstrosity. The name Seahawk originated from a popular method that teams used around this time frame, which was a name the team contest where the people who lived in the city was able to submit proposals for what the team should be. And the term Seahawk, despite not even being an actual animal per se, got selected out of the 1,700 plus options since it represented the Pacific Northwest area fairly well. There's only really been two main logos, the first one being the original logo which lasted until 2001, and it's really retro looking with the eye actually reminding me of an Egyptian eye. Then starting in 2002, it was modernized with the colors becoming a lot more darker and muted, which reflected the trend in the NFL uniforms during the time span. And then with every iteration since then just being some color alterations. When I look at this logo, I like it, but I think if we take aspects from the previous iteration and combine them with the design of the modern interpretation, I think we'd have a really good logo. Because imagine if we had the green and that bright blue on the modern logo. It would look nice, the colors would pop, plus it would allow them to wear their throwback uniforms permanently, because objectively, those are the best uniforms they've ever had. Because look at them, they're eye-candy, oh my god! The Los Angeles Rams probably have the funniest way of being named, because they're named the Rams because their owner, his favorite college football team was the Rams. So when he was making his own football team, he just decided to copy the name because he just liked it that much. I think of all teams, the Rams logo reflects their history the best, specifically about where they played. Starting out in Cleveland, their logo was very rough, rigid, realistic. I would even say bony, which was the same once they moved to Los Angeles, but starting around the 80s through the 90s, they moved on to a helmet design, which is alright, but not really creative at all. When they headed to St. Louis, the logo is actually something I think the Giants should take note of, because it actually incorporated the St. Louis archway in the logo itself, as well as just saying specifically St. Louis Rams, before moving on to a more standard Rams logo from 2000 to 2015. Then finally, when they came back to Los Angeles starting in 2016, they kept that original logo before going on to this interesting design in 2020, which is a lot more futuristic and modern looking. And it just so happened to coincide with them moving into their brand new stadium, SoFi Stadium. Now I get that some people like this, but some people are just wrong. Look at this thing. This is hideous, and you can't even tell if it's a Ram. I get they wanted to try to be bold and new coming back to Los Angeles, but just bring back that old Ram and give it this color scheme, and it'd be better than this. Hell, I even take the original helmet logo because that looks better. To find out why the San Francisco 49ers are called that, all you gotta do is have some basic history knowledge, because back in 1849 when the Great Gold Rush happened, San Francisco was a very hot commodity, so when the team was being founded, the owners decided to pay homage to all the frontiermen and named themselves the 49ers. Much like the Seahawks, there's only really been two main iterations of the 49ers logo. The original logo is what I can only describe as a frontierman doing the Yosemite Sam pose from Looney Tunes with two guns, then followed by the very much classic and iconic SF logo in the red circle with the black border that they've had ever since 1968, and since then, all they've done is just add a few colors, change the proportions, and boom, you got an iconic logo. This logo does everything you need to do, because unlike the Rams and the Giants, they're the 49ers, so you can't really do much with that. So just have a nice simple logo, and that's what it does. It's iconic thanks to players like Joe Montana, it represents the city with the SF branding, and it has the team's color scheme. There's not much more you can ask for when it comes to a logo. Heading down south into the bayou, we have the New Orleans Saints, and this name originated from yet another Name the Team contest, with the owner picking Saints due in part to the very popular song When the Saints Go Marching In, which I can tell you from personal experience, you'll hear that song a lot in New Orleans. And funny enough, the Saints got awarded the franchise on November 1st, which just so happened to be All Saints Day. As for the logo, it's always been a fleur de lis. The only changes, however, was the fact that in 2000 the logo was shrunk down and the colors changed from a black to a very nice gold color, and ever since then the colors just changed to become a lot more brighter, with the proportions becoming a lot more sharper. Despite being really hard to pronounce, the Saints logo is really simple since they are called the Saints, and that shape has always been associated with the Catholic Church, so there's really not much more you can do besides get rid of that really bad alternate logo you have. Now on to the youngest team in the NFC, the Carolina Panthers. Now, once again, this nickname did come from a Name the Team contest, with the owners picking the Panthers because they believed it symbolized what an NFL team should be, and also the fact that it matched with the color scheme they already picked out. The Panthers also only have two main logos, and it's another prime example of the polish phenomenon. From 1995 up to 2011, they had this logo right here, which is kind of messy, low quality, and alright, but you can tell it could use some work. And it got that in 2012 because this is what they got afterwards. And all they did was remove the blue outline, change the proportion, and adjust the colors of the whiskers. And it just looks so much better. I mean, I gotta say, this logo is probably up there with one of my favorites in the league. The color scheme looks phenomenal, the proportion looks right, and it's just insane to me that only a few changes, like maybe 3 to 5 notable changes between this logo and the previous one, make such a huge difference in the logo. And it makes me wonder what other small changes can elevate logos in the league as well. And with the Atlanta Falcons, the NFC South goes 3 for 3 with Name the Team contest, with this one actually being submitted by a school teacher. She noted how the Falcons never drop their prey, which is ironic considering their Super Bowl history. Also noting how Falcons are very proud and have plenty of courage, which are very good qualities for a football team to have. Now, interesting enough, the polish phenomenon actually happened in reverse this time, with the original 1966 logo being changed in '89, with it just being flipped to face the right instead, but with getting a white outline, before just being swapped out for a new millennium look in 2003. And I'm sorry, I just gotta say that the old Falcons logo was just ugly, man. And I'd wager if I'm on the opposing team, I would gain more confidence if I saw that that's the logo of the team I'm playing against. The new logo, while it does look a bit confusing sometimes, looks so much more modern, adds some much needed color with the red, and actually reuses the letter trick we saw in Philadelphia, but instead being an F instead of an E. And while I get some people like this old retro logo, you gotta take off your nostalgia glasses. Did I hear clean sweep for the name the team trends in the NFC South? Because that's what Tampa Bay gives us with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But instead of just being the owner, a whole panel of sports writers also settled on the Buccaneers moniker due to Florida's history and myths surrounding the Pirates. This is also the biggest 180 you'll see between NFL logos, because from the 76 and 96 season, the Tampa Bay logo was a guy named Bucko Bruce, who is, frankly, looking at me in a very seductive way. I don't know how to feel about that. Before changing into a very intimidating Jolly Roger for the 1997 season, with a whole new color scheme to boot. And ever since then, it's just been another instance of the polish phenomenon, changing up the logo here and there to make it look a lot more modern and not as messy. I don't think there are two logos that describe fashion as a whole than the Buccaneers. With flamboyant and bright colors from the 60s to early 90s, and then the pendulum swinging the complete opposite direction with realistic and dark colors from the early 2000s to 2010s. However, both of them are really good, and I gotta say, I really hope they keep bringing back the throwback uniforms every year, because I just like them both. Also, please have Bucko Bruce meet Jack Sparrow. That would be the crossover of my dreams. Going to the NFC North, we have the only publicly owned team in all American sports, being the Green Bay Packers. And that fact actually goes hand in hand with the name, since the founder of the team worked for the Indian Packing Company, and the deal was he and the workers could form the football team as long as they were named the Packers and advertised the actual packing company themselves. However, in 1923, the founder, along with four other businessmen, were able to buy the team from the company and put it on the stock market so people could buy stocks of it. And you can definitely see that within the first logo they had for only 1 year in 1921, which is basically a walking advertisement. And they didn't have a new logo for 30 years until 1951, with it being a very scuffed looking package with a football in the background, which was then followed by a 1956 logo with a football player inside the Wisconsin State outline, which was inside a football. But then in 1961, the iconic G was designed by a university art student named John Gordon, and the rest is history. Until they added the yellow outline in 1980, but by then the rest was history. And I mean, look at it. There's no other logo that would fit the Packers. This logo is so iconic that even other football teams, including the University of Georgia, uses that G because it's so iconic. It's probably up there with the Dallas Cowboys stars and other logos in the AFC when it comes to thinking about logos you would find in the National Football League. Next up, we have professional football's punching bag, the Detroit Lions. Now, they were originally called the Portsmouth Spartans, but when they moved to Detroit, they chose the name Lions for two main reasons. The first one is one we are familiar with, and that is attaching itself with the MLB franchise, the Detroit Tigers. But the second one was also because they wanted to be the monarch of the league, and the Lions are known as the king of the jungles. Now, the first logo came in 1952, and it's definitely the most unique of the bunch, with it being a full-colored, scruffy football player on top of a lion, before in 1961 having a car logo of a lion, before eventually settling into the iconic lion shape in 1970. And ever since then, they've actually added more and more details to it until we get the modern interpretation we got in 2017. And unlike previous logos, this one actually benefited a lot from more details being added, since the first one was incredibly bare bones and abstract, but with each subsequent iteration, it changed the colors, added more detail, and eventually by 2009, you saw the actual modern interpretation of the logo take shape before swapping from a black to gray outline. And I really like it because the colors match very well, and it looks retro and old while it's just still looking good, which is all you need in a logo. The Chicago Bears are up next, and they are the second oldest team in the entirety of the league, but they did not always play in Chicago. Originally being in Decatur, when they moved to Chicago, they also took a page from the MLB's book, and they saw the Chicago Cubs. And since football players are generally bigger and quote-unquote meaner than baseball players, why not become the Chicago Bears? Thus, the name stuck. Originally, the logo was a realistic bear either holding a football or a stylized bear that was on a football from 1940 to 1972 respectively, before eventually taking the University of Chicago's logo in 1973.
Also, post-production here, I just realized the first ever Arizona Cardinals logo also used that C because when the Cardinals first were founded, they also played in Chicago, so they also took that C logo.
Which is funny since it's the exact opposite of what the Packers did. So you could say the Bears tried to copy the Green Bay Packers, but they did it on every aspect except the actual field. That lasted from 1973 all the way up to 2022 with a few minor color alterations before switching to the alternate logo they had being the actual face of a bear in 2023, which is the logo they have today. And although this new logo signifies that they are the Chicago Bears a lot more, I don't really like the face of it because it's not that symmetrical, so I think a redesign to make the bear look a lot more cleaner. It would be a lot more clean and clearer, and it could be part of a whole redesign since they are getting a new stadium, as long as they don't do what the Rams did. And finally we have the Minnesota Vikings, and this name came straight from the top, because the owner said that the name Vikings honors the traditions within the Great Lake regions, plus Vikings are aggressive, which is another great trait to have with the football team. The original logo actually looks very similar to the modern logo they have, except with it being flipped to the left and in a lot less lower quality. But fast forward to 1966, they flopped the logo around, gave it a new color scheme, and ever since then, this has been one last instance of the polish phenomenon from 1966 all the way up to 2025. As for what I think about this logo, when you think of a Viking, you think of the horns, the mustache, and that long hair. And this Viking logo has the mustache, the horns, and that long hair. Plus, the color scheme of purple and yellow, it's not that common in the league. So I also appreciate it doing something different. So I think we can say we ended off on a high note with this one. So as we arrive to the end of this journey with all 16 of these logos, what can we learn? Well, there's been a clear trend from designs being a lot more detailed to becoming easier and simpler to read. Also, with logos like Seattle and Tampa Bay, you can see colors becoming a lot more muted and sharper compared to the bright and exaggerated tones of the early 80s to 90s. And while yes, there are definitely logos that can get a much better redesign, like in Los Angeles and Washington, there's also plenty of iconic logos like Dallas, Green Bay, and San Francisco. And this was just half of the league, because this is still the entirety of the AFC that has its own rich history to explore. But that's a story for another day, because I'm running out of time to make this project. So for now, tell me which logo you think looks the best. You can choose one from the past, or one from the present. And why was it your favorite? Just don't choose the Rams logo, because oh my gosh, this thing is so bad looking!